So I realized how these three things are so core to who I was as a person, simply because in brown culture, you're taught to be this way right from the start as a kid. And now as an adult, I realized that I've been following and doing all the things that I was supposed to be doing or the right thing to do, but it has messed me up so bad emotionally that I have to start unlearning these. Hi everyone, this is your girly pop, Kyle, in her 20s who loves to yap. And I think by now it should be pretty clear that my whole brand is about speaking important and vulnerable topics, followed by something really fun. And since I posted a travel vlog last time, let's take a seat because today's conversation is gonna be juicy but so important. So a little context, I grew up watching a lot of Indian Hindi TV shows, and right now I'm on this journey where I have been loving finding those shows on YouTube and then rewatching them all over again. There was this one specific show, it's called Parvarish, and it's about these two sisters raising their kids, and just it revolves around that whole idea of upbringing and raising your children. So I found it on YouTube and I was so excited because I was gonna rewatch it as an adult now and just, feel a little bit more connected to who I was as a child. So I started watching it, and I kid you not, it literally took 2 episodes at most to trigger the heck out of me, because as somebody who is closer to having kids than being a kid myself at this point, I realized how poorly situations were handled in most of our childhoods. And I completely understand that it's not because the adults or our parents don't love us or care for us. I think their intentions in most cases are really pure. They just want to protect us. But I think the idea here is that their way of doing it is so top tier, horrible, and emotionally draining that I know for a fact most of us are still bearing the after effects of it in our adulthood. And even though the people that I know personally in my lives, I think we have so many shared experiences from our childhoods where we heard the same lines and same dialogues were said to us. And if you were to think that amongst all your South Asian friends, you'll notice how we end up bonding most on our childhood hardships. So I think these themes are so common and so prevalent in our community, and the fact that we have all felt it at some point or not, I really was curious. So I looked it up online, and it literally said how 1 in 5 US South Asian people who live in the US experience this emotional distress. So that means there's a lot of us who have felt the same way. And again, I'm not saying all things were bad. I think just like me, majority of you are, I'm sure, very grateful for the childhoods we have and the lives we have, the opportunities that were given to us and the love and the care we felt. And I think that's not the idea of this video, to just ramble about what's not right. But I think the whole goal of this video today is to normalize that there are some things that exist in our culture that now collectively as a community, and I think our generation is a lot more emotionally mature and self-aware, that if we are collectively saying that these things have really messed us up, there is some truth to it, and that now we can actually as individuals take steps to fix that, just to make sure we don't pass it to the next generation, and also that we have a good life. We don't have to constantly live with the same principles that we were taught, that we now understand are very impractical and illogical. I think what I would love for all of us, including myself, to walk away from this video when I rewatch it is the idea that we have some sort of awareness amongst ourselves that, okay, these are very shared experiences and we're not alone in experiencing something like that, so it's not personal to begin with. And second, solutions, right? Active steps that you can take to reverse these patterns almost. Just so I think it's really high time we start living for ourselves and not others, and we start prioritizing our happiness. And I think just these 3 points themselves contribute so much in our daily lives as Desi people, that I think it's time we need to reverse it. So let's get into it. First point is literally the idea that respect goes from the younger person to the older person, and it's just one way. I will literally not be able to fathom this ever. But I think the culture just does not believe in the idea that respect without exception should always be mutual, and it's a two-way street. Like, why is it so hard to understand and accept that respect just always does not go from the younger person to the older person? In my personal life, I have seen it time after time after time that I'm being asked to do things simply because I'm the younger one. And I have seen this assumption being made more often than not that just because of my age, people think I don't have enough knowledge or experience or emotional maturity to understand the situation. And this concept could not be further from the truth. And also, I think the line between respecting and just agreeing with somebody on something that you don't even believe in is so thin that I think the people in our community really confuse these two. And I think the line is heavily blurred in our Desi culture because those two things are not same. I could still respect somebody and disagree with them. Like, I should still be allowed to voice my opinion if I don't think a person who's older than me is doing something that's not right or saying something that's not right. I shouldn't worry that, oh, if I voice my opinions, they'll be mad at me, or they won't love me, or they won't like me, because that's a very common perception. Because of why kids like me, they're scared to say what's really on their mind. And as an adult, you bear the after effects of it in other situations. Sometimes you're scared to voice your opinions at work, or, just situations where the other person should not be mistreating you, but you don't even know how to handle that situation because you're never taught how to. You're just only taught to smile, agree, nod, and move on with your life. And it's also that you logically now understand that this people-pleasing concept is causing your self-worth, your self-confidence, your ability to voice your opinions, and just almost like being mistreated right and left. And when you realize what's at stake is so high and it's costing you things that are so crucial to just live your life, I think you'll automatically start feeling a lot more comfortable putting people in their places respectfully. So now if somebody even attempts to cross a line with me, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a coworker, it could be a stranger walking on the damn street. If they try to cross the line with me, they are not getting away with that, and neither should you let anybody get away with that, because you need to again just remind yourself of what you're sacrificing by being a doormat to boost somebody else's ego. And I need to remember that myself because it's a very hard thing to do, but what's that line is too much to lose to just make somebody happy for 5 seconds. So the second point is interesting because growing up, I saw everybody around me having this need to know everything at all times. They just want to know everything. For example, if you're going to school, you're expected to know everything about your studies. You're expected to know your next moves for the next 10 years in your career. You're expected to know at what age you're going to do what. You're expected to just have all these answers, which, now if I don't have these answers, I am so anxious. And now I can connect the dots backwards. It's because growing up, I felt this pressure to know everything at all times. I think this is how control issues start, and I have a lot of them. And I'm really trying hard to take 10 steps back from being this kind of person who needs to know everything at all times, because that's a lot of pressure. And something similar to this idea is the idea of making mistakes. I don't know why people around me when I was growing up, for example, if I break a glass, it's the end of the world. I made a mistake. I don't know why people around us made us feel like you cannot make mistakes when that is just the most human thing to exist. Making mistakes, learning from it, and moving on. But I think we were scolded for the silliest thing, and I don't know, maybe I do consider myself a little bit more sensitive than usual, but I think things like breaking a glass or something falling from your hands, why would somebody do that intentionally? And if I have made a mistake, I would be scared for my life. And I think that is just such a weird concept that I still can't wrap my head around, and I'm trying to unlearn. Because I am telling you, the second you lose, like the second you try to like loosen your grip on, you know, like your need to control things or your need to know everything, life gets so much simpler and better. Because at that point, I feel like, okay, if I don't know the answer to something, and if I'm giving up my control to know this, and if I'm not overthinking about this one situation for 10 days, it's almost like I'm giving up the power to somebody higher than me, right? Like a higher power, the universe, whoever you believe in. And the beauty of letting things unfold in front of you because you left room for the unknown is chef's kiss. Take my word for that. I think just leaving room for the unknown in your life a little bit. I'm not saying don't know anything. I think I'm just saying that let go of that pressure a little bit. The pressure to know everything. The pressure that if things don't happen the way I planned, that just means that things are not happening at all. That is like the farthest from the truth. And I have lived my life like that, where if I think of something in my head, like if I want something to play out a certain way, and if it doesn't, I go crazy. And I don't want to live my life like that. I want to live my life like I want to flow, you know, like the idea that things are unfolding, I'm doing my best, and like things are happening exactly the way they're supposed to. And that's only going to happen if you let them, you know, if you try to control everything the way you want it. I feel like we might miss out on so many good things because we don't know everything, right? There's so many things that we don't know that exist in the world. I think if we like let go of that control a little bit, so many better things come your way. So yeah, I think the second point and the solution, I think I already said it, but is like actively trying, like if you want to control something 10 on 10, if you don't have the answers to everything, try to be like 8 on 10. And like leave a little bit space, like those two things that you don't know. Be like, okay, if I really like I've tried my best, I don't know how it's gonna turn out, maybe I'll just see how things unfold. It's like one of my favorite things, like when I don't know how I'm gonna do something or something's gonna happen, and then months or like sometime later, I actually know how it unfolded on its own. It's just such a nice feeling to sit and be like, wow, like that unfolded beautifully. That is your sign. So now for the final point, I think it's the deeply rooted fear of trying new things. And I think it's very similar to the idea of making mistakes. But this point specifically emphasizes on the idea of failing, because I think failing is looked down upon so much in our culture that it literally stops people from trying so many different things that exist in this world. Like, why do people think it's end of the world if they showed the courage to try something new and then they failed at it? Like, why do we not focus on the courage it took for a person to actually be like, this is not the traditional route, but I want to give it a shot. And then for some reason, if it doesn't work out, that's fine. But why can't we put more emphasis on the courage it took to make an effort versus the failing? Like, I know so many people who are like afraid of school, because I think education system in India specifically, that's where I grew up, puts a lot of emphasis on grades and whatnot, which I really personally think I worked really hard in school and I think I was a good student. But if I think that's like the pressure I took at that time was worth it, absolutely not. Like, it just really doesn't mean anything. Your grades doesn't mean anything in the context of life. Yeah, at that time they're teaching you how to work hard, like how to be disciplined, and those are very, very core skills to be successful. But let's say if you do, I still remember I had my board exams. I'm going a little off track, but hear me out. I had my board exams and I remember accounting. I was taking accounting class. I like did commerce and whatnot. And being a good student, the pressure to continue doing well is also really high. So I remember for my board exams, and board exams are really crucial if you're in India. And I really messed up on my accounting exam. I worked so hard for it. The exam paper was so incredibly hard. I know everybody did bad. So it's like, for me, that was I remember going home and crying my eyes out. And now when I look back at that like 16-year-old girl, I feel so bad. And I'm like, nobody even cares about that stupid accounting exam. And you know, like, but that really shows how much pressure is put on a child, that just because and I worked so hard for it. So the emphasis should be that you worked so hard. And I think my mom was so kind at that time that she was like, you worked so hard. And now it's whatever, it's not in your control. And that is so true. And now I understand that. But again, like, my mom was really nice at that time, but I know a lot of other people were not, and they're like, oh, she probably just didn't work hard. Or like, I know from my friends too, people are like, oh, like, if you had studied enough, you would have done well. But that's not how black and white life works. But yeah, I went a little off track. That's actually not what I was planning to talk about. But I think that's the idea of failing sometimes should be normalized. Again, it's such a human thing to fail at things, and it should not be taken personally. I know so many people like who are so good at, like, let's say some creative field, right? But they're so scared to even try it because A, the fear of failing, and B, what are people gonna think? People are gonna make fun of it and blah, blah, blah. But you're the one who's trying it. Other people are bums sitting at home, not doing anything. So if they are talking about you trying it, clearly who's the winner? Yeah, so like, in perspective, this makes a lot of sense, but when you're in the situation, I know it's not that easy. I completely get it. But I think the idea of getting comfortable with failing is something we really need to like talk about. I think we need to start talking about the idea of trying, and then if you fail, you fail. But if you succeed, bingo. So as a solution, I think to conclude this point would be just to push yourself a little bit, not too extreme, not putting a lot of things at stake, just knowing like, okay, I can bear, like, let's say if I do like, you know, not succeed in this, I can bear that, like that kind of, you know, pushing yourself. And again, no, you don't have to succeed in the first try. I don't know why there's just so much pressure of like trying the first time you do something. There's really not. You trying it is a massive deal. Don't forget that. But anyway, that concludes the 3 major personality traits that I'm in the process of unlearning and then teaching myself the ways that I really do want to live by. I know there has to be a lot of other things that comes to your mind when you listen to this video or think of this specific topic of what were you taught, and with your life experiences you realize that you really can't live this way because it's not logical or not practical enough to survive in this world. And please don't hesitate to put them in the comments, because I cannot explain enough how helpful it is for somebody like me. Like if I read comments and I'm like, and something strikes out, like I feel the same way. And that is such a warm, comforting feeling that, okay, we're not alone in this. And there are other people also who are trying to make the situation better for our coming generation. So yeah, if anything comes to your mind, please put them down in the comments. I would love to read them. And I know a lot of other people would love to read them too. In the next video, I will be talking about 3 things that make a lot of sense to me now as an adult in her 20s about our culture. So we'll be talking about some really good things. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I look forward to hearing from you all. See ya. Bye.